Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of The Lifeline, where we're real brothers having real conversations about real life. I'm Barry J. Elliott, joined by Lindsberg Petway II, Bo Powell, and Stephen Coleman. Today, as we continue our focus on Men's Health Awareness Month, we're going to have a conversation that's probably difficult for a lot of people, but we're going to talk about structure because we believe that you can't be healthy men without structure. So we're going to dive into that conversation. Gentlemen, how are you this morning?
Great,
We are
great.
doing absolutely amazing.
Good stuff.
Amazing. Structure is the topic today, huh?
Yes, sir.
Structure is the topic. Okay. So I guess I'll kick us off with a question. And I think that this is a kind of a deep question because it seems like it's a societal type question. And the question is, why do you guys feel or believe that so many men are chasing some form of motivation instead of building real structure and discipline in their lives?
Motivation. You know what? I think motivation, it feels good. It sounds good. Discipline requires sacrifice. I think emotions are tied to motivation. You know, let me pump you up. You know how we was when we was in the huddle and we did stretches and everything. And right before you go on, you pump yourself up. That's that motivation. But to get to that particular huddle, you had to use discipline. And I think most people in society, most men like that feel good, that feeling that kind of pushes them to the point where they think they can do something. But once you get past the thinking, you got to put it to action. We live in a culture where people celebrate more hype than habits. You know, a lot of people are in the gym, and I say that because I video my workouts, but a lot of people are in the gym taking selfies rather than putting in that work. You know, hold on, but I'm getting up at 4 a.m. and getting that money. So, you know, it requires a little discipline. So I think people, well, men like that motivational factor, you know what I'm saying?
Now, Joker, give me video.
okay with
You ain't taking selfies,
right,
but you
You
video.
okay with it? It seemed like he was battling over there, like what?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I was
like
that boy, like
people taking selfies. He's like, is that me?
But you know what? Keeping it real, man. I had stopped doing that for a minute. But just talk about discipline and motivation. I stopped doing that for a minute. And I seen a brother I hadn't seen in a while. And he told me that seeing me work out, getting up in the morning was pushing him, was motivating him. However, you know what else he said? I haven't did anything yet, but seeing you getting up is motivating me. So I guess that's the oxymoronic. He's motivated, but he's not using the discipline to get to the gym.
He living vicariously through you.
Yep. That's good. That's good. Because Bo, I want to go to you next, but I want to say some about what you just said. It's kind of one of those things that there's a difference we say all the time between motivation and inspiration.
That's well,
right? And so, you know, they say motivation is outward, inspiration is something that happens on the inside. And so I think that that's probably the real the gap between I'm motivated because I'm seeing Lindsberg working out to me actually being able to work out myself. That's good stuff. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, and that's why I was gonna go to is because just even kind of using that brother as a backdrop, and it seems like a lot of guys are chasing motivation because they haven't really defined who they are and what they want. So they're looking for some external to move them instead of something internal that's going to drive them, to what they want to do with the discipline and things of that nature. So, and that's just our culture. A lot of times, if we're chasing validation or chasing approval and stuff like that, we're always looking for the next shiny object to get us to move. Whereas where you have a clearly defined, when you know who you are, when you know what you're chasing, if you've been inspired, if you had an inspired idea, then you have a vision that you're operating from, as opposed to just being moved by every wind of the trends, if you will. So I think that's why a lot of times men are chasing motivation, is because they just haven't, they're having an identity crisis, or they just don't know what they want yet. So they're just getting trying. And on some stages, I mean, if you're young, you're just trying things out, trying to figure out your way, maybe that's cool for a season. But at some point, you have to decide and begin to act and execute on what you want. And that requires a certain level of discipline and structure. And just to add another component to it, when you see a lot of brothers, we talk about the lack of fathers in the home. Many times that is a reason, because they were just never taught structure. They were never given discipline. So, life is kind of having to teach them. And so we see just a lot of different reasons why men could be chasing motivation as opposed to having that structure and discipline.
Man, that's
That's
good.
good. Well, that was one of my other thoughts. Were the older generation, or the old previous generation of men, they got up, they went to work, they worked hard, they handled their responsibilities, they took care of their family, came home and repeated. So that was something that our generation, we saw, if the father was there. So not having that father there definitely makes a difference.
I saw an interview yesterday with Marlon Wayans. He was on the Shannon Sharp podcast, and he was saying that the greatest gift his father gave to him was coming home. And he talked about how his father worked 3 jobs, and his mother almost was verbally abusive to the father because they were so poor. And I think it's 10 of them, and he couldn't always make ends meet. And so, there were some things she wanted she couldn't get, but despite of how she treated him, and Marley even said, "Man, why?" They were trying to figure out why he didn't hit his mother because she was so abusive. She had so much mouth, right? But he said, but their father kept coming home. He was devoted to the house, and so it wasn't based upon feeling, it was based upon a principle. And so I think sometimes inspiration isn't enough, motivation isn't enough. It has to be principle and, as Bo said, discipline, because you're
Yeah,
not gonna feel it.
Mm,
yeah, yeah.
that's good.
That's good,
That's
man.
good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that discipline starts in the morning. And I say this with all due respect, based upon my routine, getting up early, even though when I'm tired, just off. So let me ask you guys a quick question. How important is it to have a consistent morning routine to set a man's mindset, his productivity, and overall leadership?
Oh man. You know what? I'll kick this one off because I would consider myself this gonna sound kind of weird, but like I'm boring, right? Like, and when I say I'm boring, hear me out, because there's an
That's
old
good.
saying that boring makes you
You're
rich.
rich. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So like meaning I have the same routine
Mm,
every single day for the most part, 7 days a week. You got me? And so my whole life is literally revolved around a few routines. I'm up
mm,
at 6:30. I'm out the house by 6:50 at the gym. I hit the gym with my trainer. Then I do cardio. I normally I start my work day between 10 and 10:30. I'm eating my meal prepped lunch and meals on scheduled times. Um, and that's basically every single day. But
mhm,
here's the reason why I do it. I do it because I don't have to guess every day.
mhm,
I'm not wandering. And I think sometimes we can get into that space where if you don't have a routine or if you don't have a schedule, you can wander,
right.
right? And we all know this, idle mind
It's the
is the
devil's
devil's
workshop.
workshop. And
Yeah.
so instead of being always have something I'm supposed to be doing, and I do it every day, and it just keeps me on track. And then also it's discipline
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah,
because
discipline.
because because meal prep, my wife and I, we meal prep every single Sunday. And so as we're meal prepping, eating the same meals for the most part, 3, 4, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, all of those things, most people can look at that like that's boring. Date night on Friday. That's boring. You know what I mean? But it creates discipline within the process.
Yes,
Yeah,
Theo, I
it
think you're onto
does.
something. I was even thinking about that on the first question, why a lot of men are chasing motivation, because it is boring. I mean,
Right.
just to be disciplined, because you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And it's kind of funny because they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. However, success requires the same thing. It's doing the same thing over and over again, but you have an expected result. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, so I think a lot of times, you know, and I was, even as you were talking, I was thinking discipline is really kind of temporary, because what you're talking about, Steve, is that's just a habit now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't, I mean, that's just how you've been programmed to operate for so long. That's just the habit. It's second nature. Like you said, you don't have to think about it. So, it frees up time for you to grow, because you can become disciplined in other areas, and until it becomes part of who you are. So discipline is really 3 6 months of consistent action to it becomes second nature. Now that's kind of a deep, a whole nother conversation, but that's what that is. But I think to your point, as far as a morning routine, I think it's very, very important, because it sets the day. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
it really sets the pattern for your day. I know for me, when I find myself starting to drift or wander, as you will, I always look back, okay, dude, when you get up at 5, then that sets the day for everything else. And
Yeah.
so I have to get back to my morning routine, to get myself back. I can pinpoint it with precision. Whenever I feel myself getting off, I just have to look back. So you're off your morning routine, because that sets the day. And so, and just for those who listening, just even from a coaching perspective, I think the nighttime before you lay down, just organizing what tomorrow's going to look like becomes a part of your routine,
Yeah.
so what you're focusing on. And I would suggest, you know, just pinpointing the 3 most important things that you need to do the next day, the 3 to 5 important things, and you start checking them off in order of importance, and you begin to develop some type of structure routine.
That's
Yeah. That's
good.
good. Barry, what you thinking?
Thinking a lot. I'm thinking a lot.
Come on, baby.
So 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 yeah, yeah. So anyway, let me
Earth.
focus. So here's my question. Here's my question. What role does fitness and physical health play in a man's mental clarity, emotional stability, and confidence?
Well, let me ask you about the morning routine, because I've been trying to get you to go to the gym in the morning. So what do you feel about
Well,
I
wait a minute.
slid that one in there right
He just
there.
gonna
Ding,
hijack
ding.
your craft.
Right back
So
up.
so ironically, I went to the gym. I was up at 4:15 this morning.
Okay.
Popped up, and so I went to the gym this morning. Actually, yeah, look at God. Yeah, so I went to the gym this morning. And actually, one of the things my therapist said to me recently was what that would help me going to the gym in the morning. Yeah, but sometimes, in particular, this past month, just getting started has been difficult. So getting to the gym in the morning has not necessarily been a thing this month, but I did make it today.
Wait a minute, Barry,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
because I think you just opened up something,
Yeah,
because
for
this is really
sure.
good. What do you think what do you think is like holding you back? You got me?
Yeah, that's cool. I said this on another podcast. Since the second week, the week leading up to Mother's Day, just been dealing with some things mentally. I think this is a great conversation because I think one of the things that people don't think about is that when you're weighted mentally, it affects you physically. And I
Oh.
think that men are often expected to show up when they're weighted mentally. And people don't consider just the mental weight of what it takes just to be a man. And so, just for the month of May, and even up until, yeah, part of June, the mental weight of just what I've been dealing with, this was really hard to get moving.
Hmm.
Man, you
Yeah,
just
Trying to,
unlocked something.
yeah,
man.
as a man,
Mhm.
whether you're single or married, if you're a leader, you're bearing the weight of other people. We have something every first Sunday in our church called the men's huddle. And I was sharing with them how there are things that I would do that are unethical, but because number one of my obligation to God, but then number two, I have a responsibility to other men. So I can't just live any kind of way. So everybody say I'm just doing me, that's garbage. Because as a man, you're carrying the weight of other people. And so when you have to show up for other people and still bear the weight of all that you're dealing with, that can be tiring.
Yeah.
Man, that
Yeah.
is good. You just unlocked something, B.
Mhm.
Hmm.
You just unlocked something. That's good.
Speak on it,
That's
Steve.
good.
What's up?
Yeah.
I
Well,
see your wheels
because
turning over there.
yeah, I think what you just said is, and I think this is the key thing, when you're weighted down mentally, it can affect you physically, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we're still expected to continue. We're still expected to move and grow. And the thing about it is those are the things that we talk about, especially during a month like Men's Mental Health Month,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Where we almost suffer in silence
Yep.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's like I want to move, right? I want to go, but something is holding me back. Something is I'm not inspired or I'm not or what we were talking about inspired or motivated to really be able to move and do the things that I know I need to do. Somehow, man, I can't get it going, but I can't necessarily share it either.
Yeah.
So
And you
so
can't stop. You got
but
to keep
Yeah.
going,
but
Right.
and
here's
you
the
can't
thing
Yeah.
stop.
though. I
Yeah.
think for me, one of the blessings is despite of what I've been facing is that I have community. And so
Mhm.
at
Mm.
the onset of all that, I was able to call two brothers and say, "Look, this is where I am. I need you to pray." So actually, I didn't call them. I just sent them a voice note because I didn't feel like talking to them on the phone. So I sent them a voice note saying, "This is where I am. This is what's going on. I just need you to pray." I got it out of
Yeah.
my system. I articulated, I should say, and so it's important that you have people where you can be honest with. But a lot of men don't have that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I think the other thing is a lot of times when men do share, I was thinking about this the other day, that a lot of times when men do share, they're either made to feel weak
Mm.
or people don't pay attention. So I called my uncle earlier this year for some help with something. And I called him back to say, thank you for not making me feel less than a man for asking for help. Because a lot of times men are made to feel weak when they ask for help.
You
Yeah.
know what?
Yeah.
I want to
Absolutely.
add something else. I want to add something to that, Barry. Because this has happened to me before.
Mm.
It's not only do other people make us feel weak, but
Mm.
because we know people make us feel weak, we feel weak for even
Mhm.
asking.
You're
Yep,
right.
Hmm.
very true.
You
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so we go in already feeling like, man, I don't want to. Ah, man, I don't want to ask. I'm gonna feel weak, and then
Yeah,
we automatically think everyone else is gonna think that we're weak when in actuality we already went into the situation saying, "Man, I'm weak for asking this."
yep,
Yeah.
That's
But you
Yeah.
tough.
I
know
think.
what? You got to have that trust. And I say that because I reached out to Barry one time in a moment, in a moment that I really could have felt that I was weak. But when I reached out, it was just via text, and then it turned into a conversation. So you got to have those people around you, like you said, that you can trust.
for sure.
But Barry, you said
Mhm.
something when you said carrying the weight, but you still got to show up, man. I'm about to have a transparent moment with you guys, and I thought I was going to tell you this, guys, in private. But about 2 weeks ago, man, I had a crash out,
Mm,
Mm.
you know,
Mhm.
and I listened to Bo. No, I heard Bo, but I didn't listen.
Mhm.
I heard Bo, but I didn't listen, man. Bo told me specifically what to do, very directly.
You can say it. I'll say it for you militantly. Let me say it for you. I'll say it for you.
yeah.
He
You
militant
know,
too. Yeah.
and he knew how to say it for me to do it, but I didn't do it. And fellas, I had a crash out.
Mm.
I mean, me and my wife was talking, and it sparked something. Not in disrespect her, but what I said was loud. It was volatile. It was a volcano that erupted out of me.
Mm.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow.
I hit the couch. I hit the door with my hand, and my oldest son came down. But it was just so much that I had been carrying, the
Mm,
death of my
Mhm.
two sisters.
mm,
Mm.
MacArthur pulled something back from 40, 50 years that I hadn't even thought of mourning my father. business, taking care of my everything just came out, man. And we talked, and then when I left, I had to just get out the house, and I just walked down the street. And as I was walking down the street, each step, imagine a medieval knight who has everything on. And each step, it was like a glove fell off, the helmet fell off. I don't know how far I walked, but when I got so far, it was like
Mm.
I just felt so much lighter. Came back in the house and went to my oldest son because he saw this, and I said, "Man, I just want to apologize for that." And he shared with me, "Dad, I'm proud of you. I know I never said it. I know
Wow.
sometimes my actions don't show it, but I thank you for everything you've done."
That's
He hugged me.
Mm,
That's powerful,
you
man.
good, man.
That's powerful.
it's real good.
Something that I had been longing from, something that I wanted from him, came out a moment of embarrassment. He said, "It seemed like you have been carrying stuff for years."
Your son said that.
Mm,
My
mm,
son
Mm,
said that.
Wow.
mm,
Wow.
And he said, I've seen what you're going through, Dad. And I said, I just want the best for you guys. So then my youngest son sent me a text like, when you argue, when you yell, it hurts me. Had him come down to the table, had a conversation with him. That moment of poof, it created so much healing. Even with me and my wife, our conversations changed. I said some things, directly to her that I felt for years. Nothing bad, but just some things that you need to take a look in the mirror at, man.
mm,
And I'm Mr. For real. I'm the person who thinks he has everything in balance, but I have been holding that for so long that it just came out. But out of that particular scenario came so much healing, man. And
mm.
just the relationships individually as a family have grown. So I guess since it is Men's Mental Health Month, I took a total turn.
No,
But
nice.
it's
Nah, bro,
Yeah,
that's good.
that's good,
no,
man.
it's
I appreciate
actually
you sharing that, man.
it's Men's Health
Yeah,
Awareness Month, which includes that. So it's
yeah.
all of that. So it's good, man.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
good.
So
Wow. I think
and
honestly though, I think the powerful thing about that is I think that because you are such an alpha male and you're such I joke with you about being militant, but you are militant, right? But they had an opportunity to see you vulnerable,
yeah,
and that's healthy.
yeah.
Yeah,
Not having it
definitely
all.
is.
Yeah.
And that's what
Right.
I was thinking. There's so much power in authenticity. You know,
Mhm.
that I think a lot of us men, we because we have all these expectations. I call it. We have this productivity trap where in this performance this performative identity that we tend to operate from, whereas many times we kind of tie our worth to what we do and what we produce. And many
Mhm.
times it makes us feel unseen and unheard. And so we bottle it up because we have all these expectations. Like you said, you're struggling, you're carrying all this stuff, but sometimes you don't feel safe enough to be transparent and be authentic about it. And so you just keep holding it in, you keep holding it in, you keep holding it in and keep holding it until it explodes, and it just comes out. But that's just like a perfect picture of, even though it was a crash out, it was authentic, it was real. And
Yeah,
because
Right.
it was real, it created a level of intimacy that hadn't been present because, just for lack of a better word, you couldn't be fully, or you hadn't been fully present. And
yeah,
that's not an indictment on you. It's just an indication of what us men go through.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So, dude, I really appreciate you being transparent and sharing that, because I believe just that segment alone, that's gonna bring healing to a lot of people who listen to it, bro. So
yeah.
thank you for
Right.
Yeah.
sharing.
I was
Right.
just doing. And my
Mhm.
wife, seeing her face, it was like And she was like, I had no idea you felt
Mhm.
this way. We've been together since December 2020, married since December 2023. So that's over. I'm 53. So you think about 53 and being with somebody 26 years.
Mhm.
But there were still some things that hadn't been really disclosed, And I keep it real. She's very close to her sister. So sometimes I'm thinking like, you talk to her more than you talk to me. You know what I'm saying? It's just a little, I never knew that. You know what I'm saying? It's a little thing that kind of just overwhelmed it and blew up. So to the listeners, man, just keep it real. If you're going through something such as I was, I could say this from a real perspective. Talk to someone, get some help. I'm actively trying to find the right therapist for me. The one
Mhm.
that can understand what I have gone through, what I'm dealing with. I don't need a 65-year-old, you know. Like I grew up in Grosse Pointe. That's I'm not. I need somebody that can really authentically listen to what I'm saying and kind of walk me through what I'm going through.
You know what?
Yeah.
Lensberg, I think I think the word of the day is unlock. Okay. I
Mm.
think you just
Yeah.
unlocked something else, which leads kind of to a different set of questions.
Mm.
Because what I think we're talking about here is healthy outlets,
Mm.
right? So,
Mhm.
like, you've had a lot of things bottled up. Barry, you've been dealing with a lot of things over the last, month or so, right? And I think it goes back to, what do you guys think about, or what are some of the things that you feel like are healthy outlets? Y'all got what I mean? To be
Mhm.
able to talk or to be able to get out aggression. And notice the word is healthy
Right.
outlets. All right. The
Right.
word there is healthy
Okay,
outlets.
so
You know
so
how we can do it, bro.
so
Right, right, right.
so is
There's
that to
plenty of
say
outlets.
that
Okay.
weed is not healthy? Is that to say weed is not healthy? No, I'm
Weed
joking.
is unhealthy.
I don't do
It
weed
depends. It
for the
depends on what
listeners. I
state
don't
you're in.
I don't do weed for the record. I don't do weed.
Right, right,
There are preachers that do weed, but I'm not one of them. But
right.
but healthy outlets, I think my pastor bishop always says you need an altar and you need a couch. That's what he always
Oh,
Mm.
says. And so for the past 6.5 years, I've been in therapy. And
Mm.
for me, that has been a game changer. So I think that is a conversation that we need to have. I think we've gotten a lot better, but I think we're also light years behind because
Mm.
one of the things I think about, like I was 40 when I first heard the word self care. I didn't know what
Mm.
thing. I mean, of course, you're growing up, take care of yourself, but I didn't know what self care
Mhm.
was. So we're doing more, but we're still somewhat behind. So I think we need to
mm,
be more aggressive
Mm.
individually and as a community about taking care of our mental health and not demonizing therapy.
mm.
Mhm.
So
And
therapy, that's one.
here,
That's one
here,
good one.
here's a thought. When I was 5 years old, my maternal grandmother passed away, and they wanted to put me in therapy then because of the way I grieved. But my paternal grandmother, like, we're not putting my baby in therapy because, again, back then, therapy was considered that's for crazy people. So
Mhm.
again, that school of thought still exists in some pockets of our community.
Mm,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that's good. I'm gonna take a little bit of different approach on a healthy outlet because I think a lot of times as men, when we talk about healthy outlets, obviously therapy has become something more embraced in
Mhm,
this day and time. We always think about going to the gym,
Mm-hmm.
going to play sports and stuff like that. But I'm going to take it to something a little bit more intimate. And this even speaks to Lensberg's point, because I think this happens in a lot of men in their relationships per se. And I just want to say, a healthy outlet is just real time communication.
Mm,
Uh, because a lot of times, what we do, we're going through something, and in the moment, we're feeling a certain type of way, but we won't say anything because of what we talked about. We're men, suck it up, keep going. Or I don't want to be made to feel weak. Or,
mhm,
I don't want this other person to feel some type of way. So we end up holding these things in until over time we start to build a lot of resentment and stuff like that. And then at some point in time, we do what Lensberg, we have a crash out. So I think a lot of times, if we're in the moment, we will feel a certain type of way and we don't want to say it the wrong way. So we won't say nothing. And then after we go think about it, says, okay, I'll just suck it up and just deal with it.
Mhm.
Whereas a healthy outlet would be, finding the right time to say something. So you can use the right tone. And
Mhm.
so you can have a produce intimacy along the way and have a healthy relationship along the way. I think a lot of times one of the biggest challenges that a lot of men face is especially when they have a relationship and we don't communicate, and we don't
Mhm.
talk. And so I would
Hmm.
say that's a healthy outlet. It's just real time communication that when we are feeling some type of way, to
Mhm.
communicate that in a way that it's healthy, so not when we're angry because we don't want to say things in the right tone. We don't want to be abusive, but just taking the time out and just, pulling that whether it's a child, whether it's our spouse, and just pulling aside says, hey, just want to let when this happens, it makes me feel a certain type of way. And I
Mhm.
think that's going to be a healthy outlet that really helps to build momentum and deepen intimacy in our relationships because now we're being totally authentic,
Man,
along the way.
that's
Yeah.
deep. That's deep
Yeah.
because well, but once again, this goes back to how we start this conversation about structure and discipline. Because what
Mhm.
you are saying still requires
Yep.
verbal discipline. It requires a level of verbal discipline. Because I think
Yeah.
one of the things that you just said was, man, we're gonna communicate in the moment, but
Right.
not out of anger.
Right.
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 You like, whoa. So we have to have as
That's
men
that's
a
right.
level of verbal discipline,
Mm,
right? To not come off aggressive
mm,
or even come off argumentative. And I think that's
right.
the reason why the podcast exists.
Right.
And
Mhm.
I hope that men are really getting this and just
Mm,
being, like in that moment, really
mm,
being able to think because we're logical,
right.
right? And so we have to be able to think through those moments and use that discipline. That's really good.
So let me
Absolutely.
let me share this. Since that's happened, the point that Bo has made, I have stepped into.
Yep.
When
Mm,
something has pushed a button or it's off, I address it then.
Mm,
I address it at that moment. And I use the discipline that Steve has talked about. And it's funny that you guys just said what you said because maybe I don't say you need to have a crash out to learn it. But since then, I said to myself, I'm not holding anything else in.
mm,
I'm going
mhm.
to have a conversation about it, and I'm going to be more direct and calm because
mm,
I was embarrassed.
mhm,
I was more embarrassed about the boom than everybody else because everybody else, I understand. Okay, dang, you have been through a lot. And then one thing was like, you didn't even ask me, you haven't even checked on me about how I feel about my sister's death. And it was like, well, you just been moving. So I thought you were good. You know what I mean? And
mm,
cause I kept moving
mm,
doesn't mean that I'm not suffering inside. So even with my son, something comes up, I talk to him very directly, explain it, non militantly, more
mhm,
monthly, like I'm a monk, more cerebral. But I handle it then. And since
mm,
it's been maybe 3 weeks, and it's a new practice, Bo and Steve
mm,
and Barry, but I like it, because as you said, you can get to the point where no, you said, and I make sure it's, but more direct, more conversational, and we can have a and I always throw back, we've been together over 20 some years. Come on, we got to be able to communicate directly without me saying something and feel like I'm disrespecting you or hurting you. I'm just expressing how I feel.
You
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I can
as
relate
Steve
to
was
that, bro.
talking as Steve was talking, I was thinking about how in the corporate space we always talking about passive aggressive people.
Hmm.
Mm.
But when we don't communicate how we really feel, the truth of the matter is we're really being passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive.
Mm,
Yep.
yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
so that takes what it takes emotional intelligence and it takes communicative competence to get out of that.
Right. And
Mm.
I'm,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna add another C to that, Barry. Your communicative confidence. it
Here we
takes
go.
courage, right?
What'd he say?
Courage. It takes courage. And the reason I say that is because, all the brothers can attest, a lot of times when we bring, what we're dealing with into an intimate relationship, it turns into her problem. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because it makes her feel some type of way. So a lot of times, like, look, I ain't gonna say nothing because if I
Yep.
say something, it's gonna become
It's
her
gonna it's
issue. Now
gonna
I got to
hurt.
deal with her. You
Right,
know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
right.
But here's the deal: we got to be disciplined and still do it.
Still do
Yeah.
it. Right.
And what that
Yes.
Absolutely.
may require, as Steve said, to get the skill to deliver it in such a way to maybe she doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
to try to help her. Not to say we're managing her emotions or whatever the case may
Mm-hmm.
be, but I've learned that, the responsibility of communication is the response that you get.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm trying to communicate something and I'm not getting the response, first of all, what can I change to try to make sure I'm communicating this effectively? It is a
Mm-hmm.
skill set. I was on the internet one day and I rarely say anything or comment, on stuff because, you just can't really have a good conversation going back and forth on
No.
social media. But I just had to say something because there's this thought process or this narrative that, you should just be able to say what you need to say about something and people need to just deal with it.
Right.
And on one hand, I'm cool with that, but when you expressing your feelings becomes an attack on character, how do you expect that person to not say
Respond.
anything?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When
Right.
you're attacking my
Right.
character. So
Again.
even communicating, my point is even communicating the things that are bothering us is a skill set and that we have to
Mhm.
learn is my point with that. So it takes courage to do that. So despite all that, it just takes a little bit more work. And I think that's the work of relationships, whether it's
Mhm.
a marriage, whether it's a friendship, because we even do friendships like that if we're
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
very honest about
Honest.
that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We have certain things we may feel about in our friendships that we may not say something. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
So in every relationship, I think that's very, very important.
And
So
you
we
might be
just
able to help that person grow because they might
absolutely.
not have that skill
Come on now.
of being able to communicate in a very disciplined, direct manner based
Mm.
upon how they were raised or their personality. So
Yep.
you might be able to help them. And I've noticed that in my relationship. So, and we've been together, like I said, over 20 some years, but just a more direct conversation
Mm.
may take the person out of the blame mode or you making me feel and they can
Right.
open up to, well, no, maybe they just expressing how they feel. And it
Yeah.
gives you an opportunity to communicate back and forth. I
Yeah.
think that's
mhm.
the best thing, the healthy thing, to have a freeway, rather
Yeah.
than just a one way.
So
Yeah.
I want the
Absolutely.
men to pick up what we putting down. So, you know, I want them to really pick up what we put because and I'm gonna put it in point
Mm.
form, right? So we're talking since I threw out the question about healthy outlets. Look. Therapy,
Mm.
the gym,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
discipline communication, and then I'm gonna throw a fourth one in there, which I think Barry kind of alluded to this one too. You need a um a huddle of trust,
Mm.
meaning you need to have a group of people or individuals that you know that if you need to talk or you have an issue, you don't have to hold it in, you can go and talk.
That's
I
good.
think that's
Yeah.
good. That's good
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah, that's the lesson
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
You
yeah,
know.
lesson for the day, like He-Man and Orko,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? We got yeah,
Yeah.
lesson of the day.
I know we're running out of time, but I think what you said is key. The kind of just having that community,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of men live isolated.
For sure.
Mm,
Especially when they're going through something, and you
yeah,
really need to be around other men,
Yeah.
healthy men, I should say. You
Mhm.
know,
Yes,
Yeah.
healthy
yeah.
around
men.
other healthy men, that's gonna challenge you in love and call you out on your BS, all that stuff.
Hmm.
So I think that's very, very key. So any final
Yeah,
thoughts, guys?
yeah. I say, like you said, find you that group, the huddle, and in that huddle, you need that one that's gonna be real with you and talk to you directly, like Bo
Yeah,
did.
But you gotta listen. You gotta listen.
Wait, yeah, but you gotta listen.
You
That's
gotta
what I was
listen.
just gonna say.
No,
You
You
gotta
know,
listen.
but all things work together for the good, right?
right.
Right,
But he's
right.
saying something without saying it though. I hear you. I hear,
Yeah.
But I
I
think
hear
what's
you
cool
loud and
though,
clear.
We know.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Barry, what's cool about that before you go is that at least Lynchburg he had the character to be able to say, you know what?
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
got this advice and I
Mhm.
did
That's right.
not use it.
Right.
And I think
Absolutely.
more of us men, we got to keep it real like that. Like, man, yeah, you told me and
You told him, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I should have did it. I didn't. And this is what happened.
Yeah.
So big ups to you, Lynchburg, for
Yeah,
sharing that,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
So
Appreciate
that's a
you.
That's
part of
cool.
integrity.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a part of integrity. I would say just for my final thought is going back to that piece about community, find a space where you can be authentic and be authentic without being made to feel weak or less than a man.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's good.
That's
That's
real
good.
good. And Lindsbert, I can tell you, man, I've had a couple of crash outs, so I can relate to you. So that's a whole nother conversation, man. Maybe we can
Right.
talk offline. But to our listeners, we thank you for joining us. I want to leave you with this. Culture will tell a man what to do with his time. The algorithm will tell him what to want. The manosphere will tell him what to be angry about. And social media will tell him who he should become. But none of those voices were there when God formed him. And none of them know his assignment. And none of them will give an account for his life. So before you build the routine, before the morning alarm, before the workout, before the financial plan, answer the question underneath all of it. Not what should I do with my life, but who did God say I am? Am I living from that place or from everything else that's been speaking louder? That's the structure that holds when everything else fails, when it's identity rooted in covenant, not performance, not culture, not motivation. Go be who God said you were. Go be who you were meant to be. This has been The Lifeline with Barry J. Elliott, Lynchburg Petway II, Steve Coleman, and yours truly, Bo Powell. We'll see you next time. Real brothers having real conversation, talking about topics that most people don't want to talk about. Y'all take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lynchburg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline. God bless.